Hi, my name is Carter Razink, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of DropChain. Today, we're going to talk about how to send and opt into an asset using DropChain. With the DropChain API, you can both mint an NFT and as well as send it to anyone without them needing to know anything about Web3 or have a wallet. We manage that for you. But before you can do that, we need to both opt into the asset, which is a spam prevention mechanism, as well as send that token after they've opted in to the end user. And so we're going to do two different API calls here. They're both in JavaScript, but you can do this both code and no code. But for this specific guide, we're going to kind of show you with this right here. And as you can see, the JavaScript version of this API request can work in basically anything that supports JavaScript. You have an API key here, which you grab from your DropChain console. We just generated one for educational purposes that will work in the future. But for yours, you would include that here. And then you would include information within the body about what asset you're sending with the asset ID information, the app ID so that it knows who's sending the request, which is your app, who you're sending it from, which is user UID, user one UID, and then who is receiving it, which is receiver one UID. So let's hop in. All right, so in a previous video, we have used the asset mint function to create an NFT, and we have an asset ID that is here. We're going to opt in our user one made this. We're going to opt in user two into receiving this NFT, this DropChain NFT, where there is only one that exists. And we're going to send it from user one to user two. And so first things first, we're going to copy the user, the asset ID from the previous thing we just minted, paste it in between the quote here under asset ID, on the line asset ID. This is within the body of the API call you're making. We're using the DropChain tutorial app, but you can do this with just the JavaScript kind of form we showed just right before this. We're also going to grab the app ID and the user or test user one user ID, which is the user account that we made, minted the NFT to. So we're going to paste that right there. That's test user one. And we're also going to grab your app ID, which is at the bottom left or the top left of your app, API console. And we're going to hit save. And we're also running the backend server, which the front end compiles the body. So this is just the body section. We're sending it to the URL here. If you haven't seen already, you can either do this on your own and make the full request on your own, or you can use the DropChain tutorial app to kind of follow along. And then the backend appends the DropChain API key. We're doing it separately because the server should manage the API key, so it's kind of best practices. But regardless, we have the pages section. We have the asset opt-ins page. So we're going to go to the local host, which is where our front end is hosted. And we're going to go asset opt-in. We're going to then send the DropChain API so that we can opt in the user. And if you didn't do this before, you would encounter an error and it would say something like, this user is not opted into the asset. So we're going to get ahead of that, and we can see opt-in is true. We'll copy the transaction ID so you can kind of see what does this look like when I'm looking at it. We see the type is an opt-in transaction, and it looks like MQSK. And actually, we did the wrong account. I need to be copying test user two because test user two needs to opt in to get this. And so not a problem. This is no problem at all. We need to change user one, who is the sender of the transaction. We need to put test user two there. We'll go back. We'll just resend it. Not a problem. The nice thing about DropChain is that if you accidentally do something, we can fix it, right? And gas is not a problem because we handle that for you. And there we go. Let's copy this to make sure it looks right. Opt-in transaction. If it goes, cool. AKED, which is correct. That's AKED. Cool. Now test user two now has access to receiving this NFT. And so we're going to go back into here. We're going to copy the asset ID one. Then we're going to send that asset ID one here. So we're at asset send. We have send asset testnet. And if we go back to the server, we're taking the send asset testnet, appending the API key here to it. and then we're sending that to the send asset testnet URL within our API. Everything here described that I'm showing you is in our documentation as well, but we're using the DropChain tutorial app to make this easy. Otherwise, you can do this on your own as well outside of this app. And so we have the user ID or the asset ID here. We're going to take the app ID back at the bottom left here. We're gonna app ID rather. And we're gonna take the test user 1 who has the NFT that we've minted, and test user 2 who is sending or getting sent this NFT. We don't really need to worry about session token, but for fun, we'll take, say, send NFT transaction. This could have information about your app, maybe information about if someone won the NFT, maybe it's an ID for their winning, like the receipt, kind of up to you. And asset amount int is going to be, it's going to be 1 because we only have one NFT. We can only send 1. If this had decimals, we would have to add those decimals to this. So if you had, say, an asset with 2 decimals and we wanted to send 1 unit, you would have to do 100 because it'd almost be like sending 1.00. So you have to send an integer here, so you would delete that decimal. But for now, we don't have any decimals, so we just have 1 here. And there is a link below to kind of run you through that process of minting an NFT or an asset for the first time, and it's explained kind of the intricacies of that if that's confusing. But now we have asset send. We have everything saved. We've saved that page. We're going to go to asset send within our app that we have set up here. And then we're going to send a request. And after we wait for a moment, it's going to be confirmed. It should at least, right? Hopefully we did everything correct. And if not, it'll say an error. And it looks like it was good. So what we should say here is when we paste this transaction ID into testnet.algoexplorer.io, yep, we have sent 1 DropChain NFT to that test user 2 wallet. The sender now has 0 because it only had 1 to start and it sent it. And the receiver has 1 because it just received it. And so if we go to text, we say send NFT transaction. That's exactly the same transaction note that we included in the code we just changed. And that's it. You can build a robust Web3 app with just the DropChain API and the DropChain tooling. There's no need to know anything about smart contracts or no need to play in the Web3 complexity that goes into that process. Please, if you haven't yet, make a free account at dropchain.network to get started and join the Discord. I'm in there, my co-founder's in there, helping people like yourself build their first Web3 apps. Thanks.